The average tandem dump truck is limited to about 13 tons of payload each truck. If we conservatively figure the revenue at $5 per ton, that comes to $65 in revenue each load. If we then conservatively figure 6 total loads per day, that comes to $390 per day, and if we figure 200 working days per year, that comes to $78,000 in revenue per year earned with the tandem truck. Finally, if we say the life of the truck is 10 years, which is once again a conservative figure, that comes to $780,000 in revenue for the tandem dump truck over its lifetime. The super dump will haul as much as 26 tons of payload per truck. At $5 per ton, that comes to $130 per trip. And at 6 trips a day, that's $780 per day. And at 200 working days per year, that comes to $156,000 in yearly revenue with the super dump. And over the conservatively figured 10-year lifespan for the super dump, we then have $1,560,000 in revenue over the life of the super dump. So even using conservative numbers across the board, the super dump will earn $78,000 in additional revenue every year. That means the added super dump equipment pays for itself in just 1 year. And when the super dump then generates $780,000 in additional revenue over the truck's life, it pays for itself 10 times over in additional earnings alone. This comparison so far is all based on the revenue being earned on a per ton basis. But in some areas, depending on the material being hauled, you might be paid on an hourly basis. So that a tandem truck with its 13-ton payload gets paid $50 per hour rather than per ton. Let's quickly calculate the earnings based on this, figuring 8 hours per day and the same 200 working days per year. And that comes to $80,000 per year if all your revenue is at this hourly rate. Well, a super dump hauls 26 tons, which is twice the payload per trip as a tandem truck. Besides the big payloads, the super dump is proven to be the most versatile and most efficient dump truck because it carries the payload of a trailer but has the quickness of a tandem. And the increased production gained using super dumps makes them worth even more than the increased payload they provide. But conservatively, let's look at increased payload alone. If the tandem earns $50 per hour, we divide that by the 13 tons that it hauls. And that comes to $3.85 per ton hour. We then apply that same ton hour rate to the super dump, multiplying it by the 26-ton payload, and that comes to $100 per hour, based on the additional payload alone. Now we'll multiply that rate by the 8 hours a day and 200 work days a year, and we have $160,000 in revenue each year with the super dump. Multiplying these yearly amounts by the conservative 10 years for the lifespan of the trucks, and we have $800,000 for the tandem truck's lifetime revenue and $1,600,000 for the super dump. So even when paid hourly, once the rate is adjusted for payload, super dumps make $80,000 in additional revenue every year and $800,000 in additional revenue over the truck's life. Thus, however your revenue is earned, when compared to a tandem dump truck, the super dump pays for itself in a year, and over its life pays for itself 10 times over in additional revenue alone. The smart owner of a tandem truck will see the value in super dumps and not only replace the tandem with a super dump, but reinvest the additional earnings in more super dumps. As we've shown, a super dump makes $160,000 in revenue each year, and $80,000 of that is additional revenue on top of what the tandem truck normally makes. And in year 1, the extra earnings from the super dump pays for the super dump's extra cost. Then in years 2 and 3, the extra earnings will pay for a second super dump. Now with 2, the yearly earnings are $320,000, and we'll continue to use $80,000 from each truck as additional revenue for $160,000 a year. So in year 4, the extra earnings can pay for a third super dump that year alone. We then have 3 supers for $480,000 total earnings and $240,000 extra earnings per year. And over the course of years 5 and 6, these extra earnings will pay for 3 more super dumps. Now after 6 years, we have a 6 super dump fleet, which earns almost $1 million per year in revenue, with $480,000 extra revenue. So that in year 7 alone, that extra revenue can buy another 3 super dumps. That brings us to 9 super dumps in the fleet, which now makes $1,440,000 in revenue each year. There's plenty to keep reinvesting into more super dumps, but it's worth noting once again that this is after just 7 years, and by reinvesting only the extra earnings, the revenue that the super dumps make in addition to what tandem trucks make. $1.4 million every year, far more than any tandem truck makes in the truck's entire life. And if you continue investing into your super dump fleet in this manner, a fleet of 20 supers would make $3.2 million in revenue per year. But regardless of whether you have your eyes set on millions annually or just a big boost to your income immediately, it starts with a super dump, the most profitable dump truck in the industry.